Hello guys, Flanker is here. In this video I would like to share a great bow and rapier PvP build. I'm currently close to 1400 hours in New World and I've been using it more than 95% of the time. This build will allow you to deal probably the highest possible range single target damage and also pretty decent AoE damage. On the other hand, using a rapier will significantly increase your mobility and survivability, making it potentially impossible for enemies to kill you unless you start making mistakes. Before we move forward, I would be very grateful if you support my channel with your like and subscription. So let's start with attributes. The best option here is to have 10 constitution points and put the rest in dexterity. In this case, you will be able to reach 50 con with food when you need it, and at the same time you won't have to buy expensive plus 40 dex food. Alternatively, you may try playing with full dexterity and use dex food. I've been playing like that in the first 800 hours, but at this point of time I feel that having 50 con is much more comfortable. You will never have a healer around, which means that you can rely only on your potions. Therefore, having them 20% stronger will significantly increase your survivability. With the introduction of Umbral Shards system, it became much easier to obtain a legendary Lazarus bow, which I believe is the best in slot for this particular build and probably in all other cases too. The combination of enchanted and vicious perks is deadly, and Lazarus bow is the only one in game that has them both. The best gem for bow is usually either diamond or opal, it really depends on your preferences and playstyle. As long as I often use heavy attacks, opal is not an option for me, and that's why I prefer using a diamond for a stable 15% damage bonus. Rapier is a secondary weapon that you will use probably 5-10% of the time. That's the reason why I prefer having Sundering Riposte perk on the rapier, because in this case I can have one more perk on my armor. Enchanted is also a great perk to have, and the third one is pretty much up to you. As long as I also use Rapier to kill the low HP targets in close combat, I've chosen Plagued Strikes to make that a little bit easier. Emerald or Opal Gem will be the best choice for a Rapier. Light Armor is one and only option for this build because of the damage bonus and mobility. Now, Resilient is the most important perk that you must have on every piece of armor. At this point of time, you can have any decent second and third perks, such as perks for Bow, Refreshing, Aversion, and so on. Keep in mind that physical and elemental aversion perks currently do not stack, and that's the reason why I have only one of each. But according to the February patch notes, it will be fixed after the next update, and if that happens, then I would recommend to have a combination of resilient and aversion perks on all armor. Speaking of gems, the best option here is obviously Onyx. It is mandatory to have health and divine perks on your amulet. Divine perk also affects your potions, and as I already mentioned, they are the only way for you to recover your health. The third perk can be refreshing, purify, pretty much anything as long as you have health and divine. The most important perk for Ear Ring is Refreshing Toast, I guess that goes without saying. Other perks can be Refreshing, Nimble, Regenerating, Purifying Toast, or Healthy Toast. Speaking of ring perks, I prefer having Thrust Damage rather than Keen Awareness. Obviously, Critical Chance is important, but this stat becomes less valuable because of the Dexterity bonus that guarantees a crit after a dodge roll once per 10 seconds. However, both options are possible. Apart from Thrust Damage, I recommend Hearty for extra stamina. In this case, you will be able to dodge 4 times with a rapier if you use evade after one of the rolls. The best gem for jewelry is Onyx. Now let me show you the build for bow. I don't really want to waste your time and read the description of every ability because we have more important things to talk about. So if you have any questions about the build, you are more than welcome to ask them in comments. Just one thing that I want to mention, if you play Outpost Rush, you may consider changing Rain of Arrows to Evade Shot. But once again, it depends on your playstyle and preferences. Here is the build for Rapier. Feel free to take a screenshot and ask questions in comments if you have any. And now, let me share some useful tips and tricks. This combo is very effective against a group of enemies. Poison does not deal a lot of damage, but it counts as a debuff, and as a result, poisoned enemies will take 10% more damage because of your passive ability. After that, use Rain of Arrows and then immediately do the penetrating shot in the same direction. It takes around 2 seconds for Rain of Arrows to deal damage, so if you do everything properly, then your enemies will take damage from 2 strong abilities almost at the same time. Often, it will be enough for those who didn't have full HP, and some of them might be killed right away by your teammates. Don't forget to dodge after the poison shot to gain 20% damage bonus. If a group of rangers manages to time their abilities properly and use them simultaneously, they literally delete the enemies. This combo deals an insane amount of burst damage against a single target. Enemy in light armor will be dead in majority of cases, and medium armor users will be either dead or very close to that. Many bow players underestimate heavy attacks, and that's a huge mistake. Heavy attacks deal 170% damage, which is a lot, and they are also affected by multiple passive abilities that increase their damage even more. Also, this combo is very effective against the enemies who forget to move and you catch them when they stand still. This combo is very useful when you are being attacked by a melee player. Riposte will not only stun your enemy but also apply a 14% rend from Sundering Riposte perk. You will have enough time to dodge roll behind your enemy's back and do a heavy attack backstab. After that, immediately use evade and light attack that will hit your enemy very fast and with 15% damage bonus because of the evade's passives. Right after that, use flash to disengage and get some distance between you and your enemy if he is not dead yet. This combo deals a huge amount of damage, and it is also very effective against enemies with low HP. When it comes to PvP, the most important thing is to understand the strong and weak sides of your build. Our main strength is obviously the ability to deal a lot of damage, but this can be done if you have some distance between you and enemies and nobody is focusing or chasing you. Therefore, choosing your position wisely and paying attention to what's going on around you is critically important. You are not supposed to be in the middle of the fight, and it's often better to stay away from large groups of your teammates. In this case, you will have a chance to remain invisible for your enemies, especially those who have a tunnel vision, and they won't even have a clue why they are dying one by one. So, as flanker, I hereby give you permission to flank. Situational awareness is another vital skill. With proper gear and Rapier, you are potentially immortal, and the only reason why you can get killed is you making a mistake. Make a habit of looking around every 10-20 seconds to avoid being caught or chain CC'd by a couple of enemies that suddenly appeared behind you. Speaking of mistakes, let me share my experience so that you won't have to learn them by trial and errors. First of all, make sure that your HP is always full. I know, it doesn't sound like a great advice, but hear me out. Always have full HP. If something hits you, then the first thing that you want to do is an immediate dodge roll and using your potion. I've seen it so many times when someone has 60% HP, takes a crit, starts panicking, and then dies from a random musket shot. Apart from that, having full HP is mandatory if you don't want to lose a 15% damage bonus from Diamond Gem. If I find out that you somehow managed to die because of not using your bloody potion after watching this video, I don't even know what will happen. Well, probably nothing. The next mistake that I want you to avoid is overplaying a Rapier. Yes, it deals a lot of damage, but one mistake in close combat may often lead to death. Don't forget that your primary weapon is a bow, and you must have a really strong reason to switch to Rapier. In addition to that, you should often save your Rapier cooldowns to survive things like Gravity Well, Void Gauntlet Root, Ice Shower, and other unpleasant stuff. One more thing to keep in mind is the fact that this build is not for 1v1. If that's something that you like, then change Rain of Arrows to Evade Shot, increase your Constitution to 100 or 150 points, and put Opal in your bow. But that's a different story. With this build, try to avoid any 1v1 fights unless you have a strong advantage against your enemy. You can kite any player forever, and this is your advantage, so start shooting him as soon as he gives up, and that usually happens very fast. Another important tip that I want to mention: try to stay away from open areas. Any ranged or light armor player is a juicy target for enemy musketeers, so if you take a shot, then make sure to have an obstacle between you and that coward on the other side of the map who cannot fight face to face. Wait a second. No, we are not the same. We are just playing smart, but they are bloody cowards. Alright, so jokes aside, I hope you got the point, and if not, then just play a couple of Outpost Rush matches and learn with your own mistakes. If this video was helpful, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a like. I am Flanker, and I wish you luck in Eternum.